Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deb Randazzo with Build Your Fortune, Envision Your Future, and Find Your Niche. I am happy and glad and so excited to be here today with Melissa Deely, who we met through a mutual friend. Hi, Melissa. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you, Deb. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Tell my viewers all about yourself.
Sure. Well, I am an integrative health practitioner and registered health coach and owner of Your Guided Health Journey, as well as a podcaster. My podcast is called Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call. But I wasn't always in this line of work. This has been a journey over the last 6.5 years. And as with many healers, there's always something that happens that leads you into becoming a healer. And for me, that was my two daughters' health journeys. After I was let go from a 24-year career, and everything happens for a reason. So back in March 2015, I had been working in the corporate world for 24 years, and big fish comes along and buys little fish and lets a lot of us go. And I was given an hour to clear out my desk and no word of thanks. And that's the part that hurt the most. And in that moment, I knew three things. I was never going to work for someone else again because my 24-year loyalty got me nowhere. Whatever I did next had to be more of service to humanity and the planet. And I had no idea what that was going to be, but I was open to being guided. And guided I was. And later that year, I found a company that specialized in brain supplementation. And that was my first aha. Wow, I use my brain 24/7, and no one's ever told me that I could be doing more for my brain. And I know that over here, we have near epidemic rates of Alzheimer and dementia. But over here, I had a grandmother who was 99 years old, still living at home by herself, fully cognitively functioning. And I went, how do I get on her path? And maybe this brain supplementation will have something to do with that, right? And so I jumped in, I started learning about the brain, and it got me thinking about my grandmother's life compared to my own. And she was born in little old Christchurch, New Zealand, in the bottom corner of the world back in 1916, and before the advent of all the man-made chemical toxins that we have in the world today, growing all their own food on their property. And I was raised in Tokyo, Japan in the 1970s, in the height of manufacturing plants spewing out toxins. Now, I had a great childhood, being raised in Japan, etc. But I realized in that moment, as I thought about her life and my life, that I was much more toxic than she ever would have been, and that I was therefore likely behind the eight ball. And so I needed to do something about my toxic load if I wanted to get on her path versus the very common path of Alzheimer's and dementia. So as I was learning about the brain, I was then also diving into toxicity levels and what toxins are doing to our human body. We don't see them, we don't think about them, and yet they're having massive impact. And 4 months after starting, learning about this company and starting using supplementation to support my brain, my oldest daughter got a concussion in her first high school soccer game of her grade 12 year. And she had actually just started using the supplementation the week before. And on the way to the soccer game, told me how she really felt it was improving her focus in class in the afternoon. And I'd said, great, that's what it's for. Keep using it. So now she has a concussion. And I live in a town where there's a lot of concussion. It's Whistler, BC. It's a ski hill in the winter. It's downhill biking in the summer. There's a lot of concussion. And there's a lot of people who are experts in concussion. And during the 4 months since I'd started learning about the brain, I had started actually talking to many of these experts and learning more. And so now I knew exactly where to go to for support in helping my daughter, which was fabulous. But I also realized she didn't have the cognitive function to go to a practitioner and see them and hear what they say she has to do to support her healing and come home and tell me that so I could also support her. She wouldn't retain it. She wasn't retaining things that I was just telling her in the morning, like 5 minutes later. So how is she going to retain something from an hour-long appointment, right?
Yeah.
So I went with her because I wasn't working. I could, right? So, and it was also furthering my interest, my learning, my study. And so I went with her to all of the appointments. Then I could hear the information even when she was overwhelmed, her brain was shutting down, she couldn't take it anymore, so that I could help her between appointments. And I had my next aha. What do other people do that don't have a mom that conveniently isn't working to go to all my appointments with me and hear all of this information and then help guide my healing journey? And 2 months after my first daughter getting her concussion, I was driving to Vancouver, actually to meet with the CEO of this brain supplementation company. And during that drive, I got a phone call from the high school that my younger daughter, who was in grade 8, had a suspected concussion from gym class. And could I please go pick her up?
Oh my gosh.
And in that moment, I literally looked out my windshield up at the heavens and said, really? This is how you show me my path? Stop taking out my children. I didn't have any more children to be taken out, but now I had 2 very different concussions, and I'd already learned enough about concussions to know that no 2 are alike. 2 very different concussions, and now 2 sets of appointments to be going to with my 2 daughters. And as I said, we're in a small town. People got to know my story. And before long, I was invited to work in a holistic clinic to help other people heal from concussions because I was bringing this nutritional piece to it that the other experts weren't addressing. And I checked in with those other experts because I didn't have any training. I just had my own research from trying to help my daughters heal and everything I was learning through that process, and then working with this company that was specializing in brain supplementation. But I still didn't feel qualified to do this, right? I was just doing what I needed to do for my own kids. And so I asked these other experts in town and said, am I stepping on your toes? Should I do this? Should I not? And they're all like, no, we need more support. And what you're doing is very valid. So if you can help more people need that. You should do this. So I decided, okay, if people need this and, I'm being guided into this, maybe this is what I should be doing. Except that I couldn't get insurance because I didn't have any qualifications. So that became the roadblock. So I contacted a friend who was a life coach, because life coach, that had been in the back of my head ever since I'd been let go. And this is all happening now over the span of more than a year, probably like 14, 16 months. And the good news is both my daughters did fully recover. So that's wonderful. But I contacted him to say, hey, you're a life coach. This is what I'm wanting to do. What's a good life coaching school? I know there's a lot out there and I don't know how to choose a good one from a bad one, right? I want to be a good life coach. And he just said to me, you don't need to be a life coach. You need to be a health coach. And I went, what? What's that? I've never heard of that. And that landed in that moment. Life coach had been percolating, but not landing. This landed. So I researched a couple different health coaching schools. I found one that I loved right off the bat and went, I can't pick the first one. I better do a bit more research. I did. I came back to that first one because it resonated so much with all that I was learning already, because they had, a brain component to their health coaching and the psychological component, et cetera, that others didn't have. So I jumped in, and within 10 days, I'd started that program with their next cohort that was starting. And I did go on to do my life coaching program as well, which I did for the skills, but I didn't have the same passion for it. And then I went back to health coaching, mastery coaching, and through them, I was introduced to a fellow by the name of Dr. Stephen Cabral. And he created the Integrative Health Practitioner Organization. And when I saw that program and what he was offering and what he was doing in the world, I knew instantly that is what I needed to do. But I still had a number of other courses I needed to complete, and I couldn't possibly do everything at once. So I knew as soon as I finished everything that I was already registered and working on and got all of those certifications in my mastery coaching, I was going to join the Integrative Health Practitioner Organization. And that I did. And the reason I did is his story is incredible as well. At 17 years old, he had been diagnosed with 3 chronic illnesses. He was in grade 12. He couldn't get out of bed. He had been an athlete all his life. And mainstream medicine was telling him, sorry, can't do anything for you. Here's some drugs to, help you deal with the symptoms, but this is as good as it gets, and you're going to have these chronic illnesses for life. And he had his pity party. And then he woke up one day and went, wait, this isn't my life. This isn't why I was placed on this planet. I need to find the type of medicine that can help me heal, because allopathic is failing me right now, but there's other types of medicine out there. And over the next 10 years, he literally went on a journey to heal himself. And he became a naturopathic doctor. And he went to India and Sri Lanka and studied Ayurvedic medicine. He went to Beijing and studied traditional Chinese medicine. He also studied orthomolecular medicine, bioregulatory medicine. And in that process learned there's no one best form of medicine, which is what he thought he would learn at the outset. What he learned is you can take pieces from every form of medicine and blend them together to create the best form of medicine. And as living testimony and with that powerful story, he started attracting a lot of clients. Well, pretty soon he had a wait list that was a year long. And he didn't want to tell people that were suffering that they had to wait a year to see him. But there was no one else that he could refer them to. So he decided, well, I can't clone myself. Science hasn't figured that out yet. But what I can do is I can train other people to do what I do. And so that's why he created the Integrative Health Practitioner Organization. And that's the program that I've now completed. And so that allows me to run functional medicine lab tests that get mailed to people's homes. So it's really easy for them to do. They don't have to go to a clinic. And use his protocols that he has created with a client base of over 250,000 clients that, when you see these results, this is how you help this person. When you see these results, this is how you help this person. And it's all about where the body is out of balance and looking for those imbalances. It's not about, I'm going to give you the name of this disease. First of all, only doctors can do that, and I'm not a doctor. But even if somebody comes to me now with a diagnosis, I don't really care what that diagnosis is. It's just a label. I want to see why those symptoms are going on and getting to that root cause. And we get to that by seeing where the imbalances are. So it's been a really amazing journey getting here. And I absolutely love what I do. And I love working with my clients and helping them heal, truly heal, as opposed to masking symptoms with drugs. So another piece of that is teaching people to have awareness in how their body talks to them. So often we accept symptoms as aging, as genetics, as seasonal allergies, and we don't do anything about it, and we just keep on going. But the reality is that our symptoms are our body's way of talking to us and asking us to do something differently. And they're not supposed to be ignored. And in fact, worse things happen when we ignore them for too long. And so I have this little saying that is very true. And it's that at first, our body whispers to us gently in the light of a feather. And if we don't listen, it might come along and thump us with a brick. And if we still don't listen, then watch out, because you could get whacked by a wrecking ball. And nobody wants that. And yet we probably all know someone it's happened to. And so when I work with clients, I want to work with them when they're at that feather stage or the brick stage so we never have to get to the wrecking ball. And we can absolutely do that when people realize that these symptoms are my body's way of talking to me and asking me to take action and do something differently instead of normalizing things. You know, the world is the most stressed out it's ever been. We all look around, see everyone else stressed out, and think it's normal. It's not. It's impacting our health. High stress is impacting the health of many of our internal organs. And so we have to start to recognize that these symptoms we're having have root causes. And when we find out those root causes, we can also be guided on our healing journey. Women in menopause, another common societal acceptance: hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, weight gain, all of these things. And some of the symptoms are far worse, and women are really struggling with them. And yet thinking it's menopause. I just have to live with it. I just have to get through it. As opposed to realizing that these are signs, these are symptoms, your body's talking to you, your hormones are out of balance, and we can rebalance them so that you can have these 10 years that it could last of your life as the best years of your life instead of suffering through. PMS is another one. How many women have PMS every single month and accept it? It's just PMS. It's just PMS. How many times do we hear that, right? Again, it's the body is so beautifully designed, by nature. It's not supposed to give you pain every single month or cause you discomfort or whatever your symptoms are that are bothering you. That's a sign that there's something going wrong, that your hormones are out of balance. And we can fix that. We can bring them back into balance using natural herbs and supplements, not a drug. So that you don't have to put up or tolerate monthly discomfort. And the connection between stress and PMS or menopausal symptoms is very, very high. And I'm just going to explain that to people. Because when we are living in the stress state, chronic stress, our body, our brain thinks we are in danger. Our brain is charged with keeping us safe, and it's doing a really good job because we're here. And it knows it's doing a really good job because we're here. But when we're in that chronic stress state, it triggers the brain. And the brain doesn't know the difference between going back to our early days of being a hunter-gatherer, and it doesn't know the difference between the threat of us being the hunted by a lion or a tiger, or the difference between that stacked stress of getting up in the morning, trying to get out the door, having a fight with your spouse, kids being difficult and making you late, getting stuck in traffic, and the boss calling and saying, "Why aren't you here?" Brain can't tell the difference. It's just more stress. So the brain wants to keep you safe, and it knows that to keep you safe, you need cortisol, you need adrenaline, you need to be able to flee or fight. And so it's pumping all of that out into your body for you. But in order to give you the energy to get to safety, it has to shut down other systems. And some of the systems that it shuts down are your digestive system, because we don't care about what we've eaten at that point. We're trying to get to safety. Your rest system, you're not going to lay down and take a nap right now. Rest and digest gets completely shut down. And it's also shutting down procreation, because we're not making a baby right now either. And so what happens is, as the body's demand of cortisol increases, it starts stealing from progesterone. So the body is not making progesterone as it makes more cortisol, but it still makes estrogen. In addition to that, we can get high estrogen from our foods. We can get estrogen from a lot of the skincare products we're using. They're called xenoestrogens. So our body makes estrogen, and we get it really easily through external sources, whether it's food or toxicities. So our estrogen levels staying the same or going up, but our progesterone levels going down. This puts us out of balance. This starts to cause symptoms. And this puts us into a state of estrogen dominance. And that is not a state that we want to be in. Because when we get into this state of estrogen dominance, it puts us at higher risk of developing breast cancer. It starts to slow our thyroid, which is in charge of our metabolism. We start to gain weight. The more our thyroid slows, the more our estrogen goes up. It starts to impact our insulin levels and can send us down the path of type 2 diabetes. So we're all interconnected. And this has all started because we're living in a stressed out world. And because none of this information is taught. I didn't know any of this 7 years ago when I was in the corporate world. And when I got into health coaching, I honestly had an aha there too. That if the entire world was just required to take this first 6-month health coaching course that I took, we would not have the illness we have in the world today. We have seriously, all of that information that I learned in that program, I didn't know before I got into that program. And I considered myself to be a healthy individual. And I exercised and I tried to eat healthy, but I just didn't know because I hadn't been taught, and I was busy in my corporate world and I was stressed out and working 60-hour weeks and raising a family and all of those things that everybody else is doing. We're all just trying to do the best we can in any given moment. The problem is you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know until I needed to know because I was taking a course. But right now, 6 in 10 Americans have a chronic illness, and 4 in 10 have more than one. And the reality is that chronic illnesses are lifestyle diseases. And even though mainstream medicine tells people you can't heal from them, you absolutely can when you know how, as my mentor, Dr. Cabral, has proven, and many others. It's just mainstream medicine isn't taught this through medical school. They don't do much, if any, courses in nutrition. They certainly aren't talking lifestyle, right? And healing from chronic illness takes time. It takes less time to heal from it than it took you to get there in the first place. I will say that, because these diseases are building up in our body over time. We don't realize it, but we didn't go to bed the night before and then wake up and suddenly have, get diagnosed with diabetes or heart disease. It's been happening. Alzheimer's and dementia, that can be, brewing for 20 to 30 years before you ever get a diagnosis. And that too is a chronic illness, a lifestyle disease, as are some forms of cancer, autoimmune diseases are, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, obesity, all of these. And yet we have 6 in 10 Americans with one chronic illness today. And so it's my mission and my purpose, as I've discovered and been guided to this place, to shift the mindset around our health. That your health is your greatest asset. It says it right here. Health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. It's your greatest asset. You need to invest in it. You need to prioritize it, because when you have your health, you can live life fully and vitally, living your purpose and exactly what you're meant to do. You can't build a business from your sick bed. And unfortunately, today, too many people are in nursing homes dying longer. I want people to live longer, like my grandmother did. She did end up dying at 101 in her bed at her home. That's what I want. And that's what I want for anybody else who wants it too. You have to want it. I can't make you have it. I can't do the work for you. You have to want it. But if you want it, I can work with you to show you how to get there. And interestingly, it comes back to starting with those toxins I was talking about at the very beginning. What is your toxic load? Since World War II, we have had 144,000 man-made chemicals introduced into our world. That is a lot. And the human body is very slow to evolve since the beginning of time. And it was never meant to deal with that onslaught of toxins. They're getting into our body through our airways, our waterways, our food, through skincare products we're putting on our skin. How long do you think it takes if you put something on your skin that's toxic from one of your, personal care products? How long do you think it takes for that to get into your bloodstream?
About a minute.
It's even less. It's
Really?
26 seconds.
Wow.
26 seconds. And it's straight into the bloodstream because it's not going through the liver. At least when it's coming into our mouth, the liver has a chance to detoxify it. But that's also true if you're just walking on a city street and the exhaust from cars is getting on your skin, right? It's getting into your bloodstream. So we're at a place now where we can't avoid the toxins. We have to accept that toxins are getting into our body. But what we can do is we can choose to support our liver and kidneys in getting the toxins out. Because our liver and kidneys are getting absolutely bogged down with this onslaught of toxicity in our world. And they're unable to get the toxins out. And that means they're also unable to fulfill the rest of the liver has 500 chemical reactions it does in our body to keep our body pure and clean. And it's trying to cleanse our blood every 6 minutes. It's working so hard as we keep putting toxins in unknowingly. No one's doing it on purpose, unknowingly. And here's the thing, in Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, Latin American culture, and not just Chinese, all Asian cultures, they still practice detoxification principles to this day. But it's only in the Western world where we don't, where we just think, oh, having a shower every day, that's good for good health and good hygiene. And it might be good for good hygiene, but it is definitely not enough for good health, because we have to look after our inner body too. And we know this because the science of epigenetics, which is new science in the last 5 to 10 years, tells us that it's not just your genes that dictate your health outcomes. It's your genes plus the environment you create inside your body that dictate your health outcomes. And the environment you create inside your body is worth 90 to 95% of that equation. That is really powerful because it means you have the choice to create a body that is inhospitable to disease. You can do this. It's in your power. It's not, my mother had breast cancer, my sister had breast cancer, I'm going to get breast cancer. We've been there. And if we believe that enough, that's what's going to happen. And that's why I dislike labels. Let's look for the root cause. What's the root cause? The root cause is your toxic load. What's going on inside your body? Our breasts are incredibly fatty. And if we're wearing bras that are really tight or have the underwire, that's actually holding the toxins because they go to the fatty areas of the body. The liver's trying to keep it out of our bloodstream, so it stores it in our fat tissue. So our breasts can be really highly toxic, and then we're holding it in with our bras and not allowing it to get into our lymphatic tissue to drain away from the breasts. So years and years of this, remember, it doesn't happen overnight. It's happening over time, years and years of this. And now we have breast cancer.
Wow.
But we can choose to do things differently. We can choose to help our body release the toxins. We can stop wearing bras when we don't need to, right? There's all sorts of things that we can be doing, simple things, right? All winter long, I'm in a sweater. I'm not wearing a bra. Who knows? Who cares, right? It's these societal things that we do what we do because it's just what society tells us, but we don't realize how they can also be damaging us, right? I teach a sleep course. We got 70 million Americans who aren't sleeping right now. And yet sleep is absolutely integral to our health. Mm-hmm. And I've got so many stats on what sleep is doing in terms of negatively impacting our gut health. And we have so many habits in our modern world that are negatively impacting our sleep. But we don't know because we're not taught this. It's not taught in our education system. It's not taught through public health. And it's assumed that because when we're born, we're babies, we know how to sleep. We're always going to know how to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we're not factoring in all the things that we're doing in our day and the habits that we have that are negatively impacting our sleep. And it's the same for all areas of our health. And so having this information is so important. And that's why I created my Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast, to get this information out to people, to share it so that they can tune in and, get this information with actionable steps that they can start implementing. Because again, it comes back to, we don't know what we don't know. And the rest of that is until we need to know. I needed to know because I needed to help my daughters on their healing journey. And that's what got me started, thinking about this. And yes, I'd found the brain health supplement company first. In that case, I needed to know because I was just looking for something else to do. Right? So all of these things landed and put me on this path. And it's been an incredible journey because I have landed in a place that I believe so passionately in teaching people about their single greatest asset, their health, because we have so much power in being in control of our health outcomes. We just need the information. So I choose every day to prioritize my health in so many different ways because I know how. And it's not hard to do when we know how. We just need access to the knowledge. And one of the things that I do is I teach people how to detox. And I start off with having them discover their toxic load score because, knowing your starting point is important, right? And I have a quiz, and that's my free gift today. So everybody can take that quiz. And that's often an aha for people because it gets them thinking about these symptoms that they have been writing off as aging or seasonal allergies or genetics and thinking they couldn't do anything about them. And instead, when they go through this quiz and they mark off these symptoms, they'll be like, oh, I can do something about this. And yes, you can. And I have created a guided detox program. I use Dr. Cabral's detox products because he's the naturopathic doctor. He's used them with that client base of 250,000 people. They work. I use them myself. I've guided hundreds of people through the program in the last 2 years, and I see the results. And I want people to get results. So I use quality products that get results. Mm-hmm. And the reason it works is I was talking earlier about our overburdened livers. And truly, our livers need more respect. There are so many things that are putting pressure on our livers besides just those 144,000 man-made chemicals that I was talking about. Stress burdens our liver. So does over-the-counter medications and prescriptions and drinking. I think most people know alcohol does, but smoking, a poor diet. There's, energy drinks, right? The liver has to process all of this, and it just puts a burden on the liver. But on top of that, we have nutrient deplete soils in today's world. And the liver detoxes in 2 phases. And the nutrients needed for phase 2, which are very specific nutrients, are no longer in our soil systems. So if they're not in our soil systems, we don't get them in our food, and then we're not getting them into our body. So we have to supplement them and to support the liver. And this phase is really important because this is the phase where the body turns those toxins into being water soluble so we can excrete them. And as I said earlier, if the body can't excrete them, it's going to store them in our fat tissues because it's trying to keep it out of our bloodstream as much as possible. That's everything we've put in through our mouth that actually goes to the liver. Anything we're putting on our skin, that's direct to the bloodstream. And when it's in the bloodstream, where else is it going? Up to the brain. So this is a huge issue, this toxic load issue. And that's why I love to talk about it. And it's where I start every single client. And in a 3-week functional medicine detox, they have amazing results. Of course, it's different for everyone. They come to it in a different state of health and they leave it in a different state of health, but it's always an improved state of health. I've never had someone say to me, oh, gee, I wish I didn't do that. I have had people say to me on day one, oh my God, this is so hard. This sucks. And I want to quit. But I offer very high level of support. I put people on an app and I see their messages and I reach out and I go, so how can I support you? Because we're not going to quit, but do we need to adjust something? And I've never had anyone quit. I've always been able to adjust things for people because I meet them where they're at. And for some people, starting off with the full program is too much for their body because it's so toxic. And we have to bring them on more slowly. And for other people, they can totally, most people, it's only like maybe 5% of the people that it's too much and I have to bring them on slowly. But having that communication with me through the app, and even before they start the detox, I've set them up for success, explaining exactly how it works and how to best choose your start date and what to expect with realistic expectations. I don't tell anyone it's easy. It's not easy the first time. Nothing's easy the first time. You're learning how to do it, right? But the beautiful thing is that people start to see results inside 3 weeks. They're sleeping better. They have more energy. They notice that their inflammation is going down and they don't have the joint pain and the muscle pain. They're noticing that they have more mental clarity. I have people get to the end of this and going, I can't ever remember feeling this good. And I love to ask people, just how good are you willing to let yourself feel? And then I usually have to stop and think about that. Because over time, in our world today, we slowly and steadily start to feel worse. But we don't notice it because it's just in tiny stages. And we accept it as aging and keep going. We do not have to feel worse as we age. I feel better than I did in my 30s. And this is 20 years later. Because I now know how to truly look after my body and optimize my health. Mm-hmm. And yet every day I meet adults who have to take afternoon naps or that, struggle in pain every day, mm-hmm. or that have, brain fog and don't understand why, or that have all of their menopausal symptoms, or that have candida and bacterial overgrowth in their gut, or we run a lab and find out there's mold in their body. They've seen lots of doctors and get told nothing's wrong with them. And the doctor may not have a label, but the labs can show us where the imbalances are. And when we know those imbalances, we know how to bring the body back into balance. And when the body comes back into balance, it can heal itself. That's what it's designed to do. It's just modern life has us way out here, out of balance and too depleted for the body to come back on its own. So we just have to support it in coming back. Maybe it's depleted in minerals and vitamins. Maybe it's depleted in omega-3s. Maybe there's food sensitivities that are causing problems that you don't realize because you've eaten the food your whole life, but now your body's like, enough already. There's so many things that can be going on. And all of this work that I do with people, it's anywhere from 4 months to about a year till we get the body back into balance.
How do you test? Excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. How do you test for all of this? Is it a blood test? Is it?
Yeah, so all the labs get mailed to people's homes, and it's either a blood test, in which case you prick your finger and they send you the little thingy to prick your finger with.
Okay.
And you drop blood into circles on a little card, and then you mail it back to the lab. Another one's a urine sample. Another one's saliva samples into tubes. That's the hormone one. And the one that shows metal and mineral toxicities is clipping of hair. So you just take hair from the nape of your neck.
Really?
And submit that. And so everybody can do them at home. And they get mailed in, and then I get the results, and then I get on Zoom with you because we can all do that now. And I show you your results. I explain what they all mean. There's no point. You can't even buy the labs without having someone read them for you. What's the point, right? You need to know what they mean. And then I provide a personal wellness protocol that shows you your next steps of, this is what we need to address first. This is what we're going to do. This is next. This is next. And we work together over the next 4 to 6 months to a year, depending on, what program you've decided that you want to buy into and how much support that you would like. And I never just tell someone, this is what you need to do, go do it, because I've seen that and it doesn't work, right? Just like, yes, people can buy the detox kit directly from Dr. Cabral and do it, but do they? How many people fall off? But when they sign up for my guided program, I have a 100% success rate. Because
100%? Wow.
100% success rate. Because when people can connect with me through an app and get their questions answered, even though I've set them up for success, I've given them everything, recipes, meal planning, I've told them about hydration, I've talked to them about everything. You go away and you do it yourself and you still have questions, right? So then through the app, they can ask their questions. And this is so important because it comes back to our brain keeping us safe. And the brain's going, what are you doing? This is different. Never made this recipe before. What's going on here? This is hard. It's taking way longer. You don't even know what you're doing. You don't even know if you're doing it right. Literally, everybody's heard these voices in our head, right? We have over 20,000 conversations with ourselves every single day. And in fact, my podcast that came out today is talking about this. Are you listening to the voices in your head? Or are you talking to yourself? Wow. We need to stop listening to the voices in our head and we need to talk back. We need to be in control of our brain and in control of our thoughts instead of letting them be in control of us. And so the beautiful thing is that my clients can say back to all of these voices that everyone gets, I do know what I'm doing. And if I have questions, I can get them answered because I'm just going to chat her and she's going to give me the answers. And you need to just bear with me while I bring us both to a new place of health over here. And when you can talk back to your brain like that, those voices stop. It's just people don't realize that you can talk back to your brain like that. And in order to be able to do so, you also have to be confident that you know what you're doing and you can get the answers. And so that's why having this app that I use with my clients to have that high level of support is what makes the difference. And so that's where I get that 100% success rate from. And I totally got sidetracked and I don't even know why we got on. We were talking about the lab tests. You asked me about the lab tests.
And I got on a roll. A different question.
Anyway, the power to be set up for success and have that support is what gets people results. I know what it was that I said, as I said that, not having that doesn't work. And for several reasons is we don't like to let other people down, but we will let ourselves down over and over and over again, right? But the reason I create that personalized wellness protocol and then ongoing sessions is to guide you through and hold you accountable, but again, give you access to getting your questions answered. Because when my kids were even younger, like way before the concussions, this is 15 plus years ago now, both of them actually had learning or struggles at school that were brought to my attention. So my oldest daughter, at the end of grade 2, her teacher said to me, over the course of this year, she's not focusing as well as she used to or at an age appropriate level, and her handwriting has regressed. And I was really shocked by this because it's the first time hearing it. And I kind of thought it over as I'm standing there. And then I turned to her and I said, how do I support her with this? Like, I have no idea. And this teacher, a godsend, I saw her the other day and I told her this. She said to me, it could be food related. And I would have never, ever, ever connected that at that point in my life. How is food related to her handwriting? Right? And she said, you might want to see a naturopath. And I was already seeing a naturopath for my own hormonal imbalances. And So yes, I'm one of those ones that I was estrogen dominant and I had symptoms and I didn't like them. And so for some reason, all of my life, I have always looked for the why. I don't know why, but I have. And so that's what I teach people to do now. And so I called my naturopath and said, hey, this is what's going on with Nicole. Is this something you can help me with? And she's like, absolutely. Let's run a food sensitivity test. And we did. And turned out she was highly sensitive to yeast and sugar. And of course, in this day and age, sugar's in everything, right? And it's one of those things where you don't see your child's behavior as being different because it's what you're so used to, right? And as I look back, or in that moment, once we started taking the yeast and the sugar out of her diet, I saw a different child. There was no more meltdowns of her crying and going, I don't know why I'm crying, but absolutely melting down. And it was because her body couldn't process all of that yeast and sugar. And so it just came out in that behavior. But I had seen that her whole life. And so I just thought that was like normal 7-year-old behavior, right? When she went back to school in September, her teacher said, different child. Like she just sat and wrote for half an hour and her handwriting is beautiful. And I'd seen the behavioral difference. But when I did that lab test with the naturopath, the naturopath gave me the results and said, don't feed her yeast and sugar. Off you go. Bye. And so I had to figure out a new way of feeding my child that was yeast-free, sugar-free. And that's not easy in today's world. A couple years later, my younger daughter is in grade 1 and I was in volunteering in the classroom and it was after lunch. And she is a very highly energetic, highly social child. She had her head down on her desk, doing nothing, not participating. And I went over and I go, hey, what's up? She goes, I have a tummy ache. And I mentioned it to the teacher. I'm like, does this happen often? The teacher said, it's just been happening this week. And I had also noticed that she didn't want to go on play dates after school that week. And she also didn't want to play soccer, which was her true love even then. So I took her to the doctor. And I'm like, she has these tummy aches. That's like, she won't do anything. She's not herself. And I'm thinking maybe we need to do an ultrasound or something and, see what's going on, start ruling things out, look for the why. Why is this happening? And I get told all little girls get tummy aches. She'll grow out of it. And I'm like, how long does that take? We don't know. Well, shouldn't we run some tests to rule things out? Oh, it could be anything. We'll never get to the bottom of it. So I called the naturopath. I said, these are the symptoms. Anything you can help me with here? She said, yeah, let's do that same food sensitivity lab. So off we go to the naturopath, who's in the next town. Turns out she's dairy and gluten intolerant. And again, I'm told, don't feed her dairy, don't feed her gluten. This is 2007, before the days of everything being gluten-free. So I now had to figure out how to feed her dairy-free, gluten-free, on top of my other daughter, sugar-free, yeast-free. And for myself, for my own hormones, the same naturopath had said, you shouldn't eat red meat. And I'm like, whoa, how much? All these individualized meal plans in my house. But fortunately, I'm not the one who's sick. So I have the energy to be able to do this. And obviously, every parent wants their child to thrive and not have them be miserable. So I've figured it out. And very quickly, inside 2 weeks, she's back to soccer play dates and the teacher's telling me she's fine all day at school. That's removing gluten and dairy. I wanted to feed her a healthy breakfast before starting the day. So I was now giving her eggs with her fruit instead of fruit and toast or fruit and cereal. After about a week, 10 days of that, she's like, I don't want any more eggs, mommy. Or I don't want eggs, I think is what she said. I'm busy. I'm trying to get out the door, trying to get to work, trying to get them out the door. And I'm like, eat the egg. This is hard enough already, all these customized meals. Eat the egg. When we went back a month later to do the retest with the naturopath, because she wanted to see how she was doing. And honestly, she was doing so much better. I felt like I had my child back, except for every morning, I don't want the egg. And I'm saying, eat the egg, because I don't have the time or energy to figure out another kind of healthy breakfast for you right now. I find out she's now highly intolerant to eggs.
Much, yes.
So I kind of went, She's been trying to tell me in her 7-year-old language that I think she was actually 6, her 6-year-old language that her body wasn't liking the eggs, but I wasn't listening. And again, all of this I'm trying to figure out on my own, but I'm not the one who's sick. So when I work with my clients, they're not feeling well. That's why they're coming to me. In most cases, I do have the few people that do recognize their health as an asset and run their labs proactively because they want the early warning signs of anything going sideways. But most people come to me because they have some kind of ongoing chronic illness and they don't feel great. And so I don't want them to have to figure it all out on their own and go to Dr. Google, which anybody who goes to Dr. Google can self-diagnose imminent death in about 3 weeks. So that doesn't help anyone because that just causes stress and the body doesn't heal under stress. So we all have to stay away from Dr. Google and instead allow yourself to work with a practitioner that will guide you through the program, because that's when you can relax into it. You know you're doing the right thing. Yes, at times it's going to take a little bit of trust to get going, but trust in that process, because then you can also start to get those results and you can continue talking back to your brain, telling it to trust too, and you're going to bring it to a new place of health. And that's how we get results. And that's how people truly heal. And it has nothing to do with a diagnosis, a label, a drug to mask a symptom. That's sick care. And unfortunately, that's what Big Pharma wants. They prioritize shareholder profit over human health. And to me, that is just diabolically wrong. And it makes me so angry. They have zero motivation for you to heal, because if you heal, they get no revenue, no profit. You are worth nothing to them.
So I have a couple questions. May I interrupt, please?
Absolutely.
Okay. Number one is these tests that you do is covered by insurance?
No, generally not. Some organizations have better plans than others, but generally they are not covered by insurance. So it is out of pocket. I have had some clients in the US though that can take their, what is it called? The what's the fund called? Health savings, HSA account, I think.
Yeah, that's where they put so much money in every month and then they
so they've been able to take their HSA account savings and put that onto their PayPal account and then pay my invoice that way. So I have had that done.
Okay. Second question, for business people, especially who are listening, how do you get your clients? Do you advertise? Do you go on LinkedIn? How do you get your clients? How do you find your clients?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm not great at social media. So my algorithms are really bad because I don't spend a lot of time going on and commenting and all of that. And I think every time you figure out the algorithm, they change it anyway, right? So I don't want to put all my eggs into social media. I do a lot of networking. So I'm in multiple different networking groups, and that's how you and I were connected through SART, who is in one of my networking groups. And it's all about building that relationship, that like, know, and trust factor, people getting to know you, hearing, what you do over and over again, building that relationship so that they choose to be a client or refer you to someone in need. I talk on summits just like this on a regular basis. I have my podcast, which I've had clients from my podcast, but I also guest on many other podcasts and have clients from other people or hearing me on other people's podcasts. And then I have many, many, many referrals from my clients that I've worked with referring me to other people. And does every single one of those people come to me? No, because they're not necessarily ready. But at some point when they are ready, they will. And so those are the ways that I get clients. It's really speaking my message and sharing what I do, because people just don't know this is available. So whether they become my client or not, they just need to know this is available. And so when and if they need it, it's available. They may not need it today, but it's out there. There's other choices besides simply going to your doctor and being given a drug to mask the symptoms.
I've met several homeopathic doctors, one in particular who's great when I lived in Arizona. She was excellent. And then I came back to Illinois here, and some of them I trust them, some of them I don't. I've met some doctors that do a muscle testing. They hold up something, whatever that is, let's say mold, and they do a muscle testing. And I've often wondered if that is reliable or not. Have you ever heard about that?
Yes, and it's very, very reliable because again,
Really?
our body tells us. A lot of kinesiologists will do muscle testing. It's very reliable. Our body, as I said, it talks to us, it tells us. And in fact, the first time I saw muscle testing was with a kinesiologist when my oldest daughter with the concussion. And she was taking the brain supplementation. And the kinesiologist was thinking, I don't know if this is good for her. So next time she comes, can you bring that supplementation and we're going to muscle test it? And it's because in her healing recovery, she kind of hit a wall. And so this particular person was trying to figure out, like, is it the supplementation that's meant that she's not, continuing to heal? And it was really interesting. So she had her lie on the bed and she put her dose, which was 3 capsules, into her belly button. And then my daughter's arms were flat on the bed like this. And she asked me to put my hand on my top of my daughter's hand and push her hand down while my daughter lifted her hand up. And when there was no supplement, the supplements weren't in her belly button, I could easily hold my daughter's hand down. But when the supplementation was in her belly button, my daughter was able to just whip her arm up, even with me holding it down. And the kinesiologist was astounded and said, oh my goodness, this is actually really good for her. And you could increase the dose. It's something else that's missing. And that was my aha a little bit later. I was like, oh, she should be taking omega-3s, as I started learning more about different supplements and how they benefited the body and the brain. And we added in the omega-3s, and that led her to the next breakthrough. So I know many people who muscle test, and it's very powerful. It allows us to let the body guide us into what's right for each individual. And yes, homeopaths, naturopaths, there's so many different types of healers out there in the world today, all under that umbrella of a holistic healing. And, the more I network, the more different types of healers that I meet. And so when I work with my clients, they also might hit a bit of a brick wall in our work together. Even though we know the imbalances, which are bringing the body back into balance, what more is there? And so depending what it is, it could be past life trauma that needs to be released. And then I'll refer them to someone to help release that trauma, etc. So it's not just me. I work with other healers and have a whole network. And that's what every individual needs, a network of people we can call on in regards to our health, not just one person. And we don't give up the power to that one person. We are an active partner with this network of people in making our health decisions.
Wow, this has been excellent. What would you like to leave our viewers today with some thoughts?
So the thoughts that I would love to leave with the viewers are that you have the power to be in control of your health. And we know that, as I said earlier, 90 to 95% of that power is in your hands. And we also know that all disease starts in the gut. And Hippocrates said that more than 2,000 years ago. And because of our liver and our kidneys getting bogged down and us not showing them enough respect because we don't know, our gut is inflamed, it's imbalanced, and cells are triggering our genes to turn on disease. But it does not have to be that way. Your dis-ease is not a life sentence. We can reverse it because when we bring the body back into balance, it starts to heal. So I just want people to know that, because that gives people hope. And when we have hope, we can continue healing. Again, our mind is incredibly powerful. When we believe we can heal, we can heal. If we don't believe we can heal, we're not going to heal.
True.
But we have to know this is out there. We have to have the hope that we can find what it needs, what it takes for us to heal, find the practitioner. And, as I said, my business is 100% virtual, so I don't have to be in your hometown. And get started today simply by doing the quiz and discovering your toxic load. And now that you know what your toxic load is doing to your health, you can then choose to take action.
I know I'll be filling out the quiz. You'll get that from me in the next couple of days.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to see that, Deb. And I welcome anybody to fill it out and just see what your score is and decide if you would like to take action. My next group Health Kickstart and Detox program starts January 4th. Of course, the new year is the time that everybody's wanting to look after their health. And if you sign up for it before December 20th, you get 20% off. And again, it's not something that you just do in January and that's it, you're done. The toxins are always coming in, so we have to always get them out. So I teach you how to make this a lifestyle. I teach you about nutrition, busting up nutritional myths, the right way to eat for your body, digestion, how to make sure it's turned on. Remember, I said stress turns it off. How do we turn it on? Because you're not just what you eat, you're what you absorb. And then sugar, it's in everything. Where is it sneaking into your diet? How do we get it out? And then I have a bonus, how not to retox after your detox. And I'm launching this month my membership program for detox graduates, which is a free program to keep people in the community with monthly Q&As with me and make this a lifestyle. Prioritize your health and learn how to bring it into your lifestyle really easily. And I live this, I walk my talk, I do this. It's not hard. You just need to know how.
Melissa, thank you so much. I've learned so much today, and I'm sure my viewers have also. And I'm urging my viewers to fill out that questionnaire and get it back to Melissa and let her help you in any way possible. Also, thank you for sharing on how you get your information out there. That's very important. And you can tell your passion for this just by the way you speak, by the way you carry yourself, everything in the love of your children. But thank you so much for being with us here today. Truly appreciate it.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And for every business owner out there, trying to build their business and find their niche, you really do have to have your health first. It takes energy.
Right.
When you find that energy, you can do anything.
Thank you so much. Have a nice holiday with your family.
Thank you. And you too, Deb.